Hello, good morning. Buenos días. At the count of three. Señores oyentes de Usa la Media, están aquí escuchando la mesa redonda de Round Table desde la ciudad del amor fraternal. Les habla Fernando Méndez, Diego Gómez controlando la máquina digital y nuestra invitada especial, Jennifer Childs. Good morning, Jen.
Good morning, Fernando. How are you?
Hello, Jen.
Hi. Can you hear me?
I can't hear.
Oh, no.
I can't hear you.
On. Okay, hold on. Let me check my...
We see Jen has a mute. Can't hear you, Jennifer.
No, I'm on. I'm on and I'm not muted.
I don't know.
Hello?
Okay, hello, Jennifer.
Hello?
Hello? Maybe
hello?
Volume also. Okay.
I have checked my volume.
Okay, I'm fine. How are you? So, let me see if we can get this technical difficulties solved here.
So sorry, you still can't hear me?
I can hear you now.
You can? Okay, good.
All right, let's start over.
Okay, let's start over.
Sorry about that.
Okay, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Señores oyentes de Usa la Media, están escuchando la mesa redonda de Round Table desde la ciudad del amor fraternal. From the city of brotherly love, les habla Fernando Méndez, Diego Gómez controlando la máquina digital y nuestra invitada especial, Jennifer Childs from 1812 Productions. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning, Fernando.
Hello,
how are
Jen.
you? Hi, can you hear me?
We lost Jen. Okay.
Wow. I don't know what's happening.
I don't hear anything.
You know what, Fernando?
Hello?
Yeah. Maybe I need to leave and come back. This is very strange. I have not touched anything on my phone, and sometimes you can hear me and sometimes you can't.
Sound. No sound.
Anything?
Diego?
Oh, shoot.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I don't.
I hear her fine. I hear both of you fine.
Yeah, I don't hear Jennifer. I don't know why.
How do you usually hear? Do you use a headphone, an earpiece?
I have my phone. I have the computer, the laptop, and the phone. And I see her on both.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. How about that?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, now I can hear you. Hey, do we start again?
All right, let's go.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, live.
Señores oyentes de Usa la Media, están aquí de nuevo con la mesa redonda de Round Table desde la ciudad del amor fraternal. Les habla Fernando Méndez, Diego Gómez controlando la máquina digital, Jennifer Childs from 1812 Productions is our special guest today. Good morning, Jen.
Good morning, Fernando. How are you?
Okay, I'm better now with some technical difficulties.
Yes.
Probably on my side. On my side. I'm not the most able person with these modern machines.
Well, little did we know that we would all have to become technical geniuses in 2020.
Oh, absolutely. Forget about being a genius. I mean, I am a stable genius, by the way. But we have all these things to deal with.
I know.
I try to find my notes so I can ask coherent questions, and then I lose the other picture. So I don't know. I need help. I need psychological help. I need technical help. So, Jen, how are we doing in this age of COVID?
Oh, well, we're figuring it out. You know, we, like so many other arts organizations, so many other theaters, are figuring out how to, you know, pivot is the new word. And and do our productions online. And so far, knock on wood, we've been very successful. It doesn't feel like the same. I miss being in the room with people, you know, I miss
Right.
having an audience, and especially because 1812, we're all comedy. We depend on the audience's laughter. And, you know, the show that we're doing right now, we're doing it online, and it's very different to look in the comments and see people typing ha 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 as opposed to hearing ha ha ha.
Yes, right.
You know.
Well,
So.
yes, I know, but you show that you're doing right now. In fact, I just emailed you the translation, the Spanish version.
I saw that.
Of This Is the Week That Is.
That's right.
So, yeah, it's difficult under these circumstances.
Yeah.
Because of the audience reaction, that the third leg of this, any kind of theater,
yeah,
is missing.
Yes, yes, it is. So we are balanced very precariously on a two-legged stool. So
Right.
that is, as you say.
And well, on top, we'll talk more about this 1812 production of 2020, the version of This Is the Week.
Yeah.
Which is now what, 15 years? How long has it been now? Yeah.
This is our 15th year of doing it. And yeah, and I don't think when we started it 15 years ago, it was just supposed to be one time. We'll just do it one time and that's it. And the audience response was so great that it has now become sort of the centerpiece of all of our programming. And yeah.
Yeah, even with my meager contribution, at one point, I was the man in the street, the interview.
Yes.
And it was pretty funny doing that with the translation.
Yes.
But, you know, kudos to you for insisting on doing this, even with the difficulties of the theater, you know, remote.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Well, I think that, you know, I look around at a lot of nonprofits and not just arts organizations. I'm thinking about service agencies, you know, people who are feeding, you know, who are feeding the hungry and who are taking care of people in need. And they've had to figure out how to rework things so that they can accomplish their mission. And I thought, well, you know, if they can do it, we can do it. And I think that is mostly what has been important to us, is how do we continue our mission? And our mission is comedy. Our mission is bringing joy to people. And so that's been really sort of the engine that's been moving us forward.
Yeah, and that's only part of the challenge. I mean, how do you write satire in the age of Trump?
That, I think, is the biggest question. We sit around, you know, you said it perfectly, Fernando. You know, most times when you're satirizing people, you're blowing things so out of proportion and you're going like, what's the craziest thing we could think of for this person to do? And we can't out crazy the crazy man.
Imagine somebody thinking of instituting martial law, for instance.
Yeah, exactly.
How would that happen?
Yeah, wouldn't that be insane? What? You know, I mean, or 75, you know, lawsuits and all of that. I mean,
and losing all of them except one that was about distancing.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. No, I have to say, and I don't try to play partisan politics, but I have to say that because we do political humor, so we've had to pay so much attention to everything that Trump says over the past 4 years, so we can figure out, how do we satirize this? How do we use this? I am very much looking forward to not having to pay attention to what he says.
That's right.
So.
And in this introduction, I saw you had some of the old timers, people who have been on your show many times. Yeah. One of them, Tony Braithwaite, one of my former students at St. Joe's Prep.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. I forgot that you all knew each other from St. Joe's.
Right.
No, it's over the years we've had, I mean, This Is the Week That Is kind of like our version of Saturday Night Live. And just like Saturday Night Live has different casts that come through and different performers, we have as well. And over the 15 years, we've had about 25 different cast members. And so this year it was really important to Justin Jane, who directed the show this year, who's incredible, to try, how do we create a sense of community on the small screen? And so having appearances by many of those cast members from the past 25 years just helped give a sense of depth and legacy and the depth and breadth of this show for our community. And it's really quite beautiful. And Tony Braithwaite was the original man behind the news desk and is an incredibly funny performer.
Yes, he was always funny as a kid.
Yeah.
Yes. And so were you, I'm sure.
I took myself too seriously, Fernando.
Oh yeah.
I thought I was very dramatic.
But that brings me back, because I usually do things backwards. So that brings me back to asking you questions about how, because a lot of people listening to us don't know you and know who you are. So let's talk a little bit about the beginning of 1812 and who you are and what you do.
Great. Sure. Well, I've been in Philadelphia since 1986. I came here to go to the University of the Arts. And Philadelphia has really changed in that time frame. You know,
Where did you come from? I thought you were from South Philly.
Oh, that's just my character. No, I came from, my family's in Ohio, but I grew up sort of all over the Midwest, Ohio, Indiana, and then some in Virginia. But so yeah, I didn't come to Philly until college, and the city has changed so much. You know, in the 80s, as a performer, Philadelphia was not a place that you stayed. It was a place you studied and you left. It was next to impossible to sort of make a living here as a performer. And so I left, you know, to seek my fortune after I graduated. And my big dream was the Royal Shakespeare Company in London. So I moved to London, and then this little pesky thing called student loans came due, and I could no longer just hang out bartending in London. So I came home to pay the piper, literally, and I came back to Philly because I didn't know where else to go, and the city had changed so much, and there were new theaters popping up, and it was a place where you could stay and you could work and you could actually make a living as an artist. And so I started working and performing and directing and teaching. And in 1997, my friend Pete Pryor and I decided to start 1812 because we both were doing a lot of comedy, and we felt like the world needs more comedy, you know? The average person, I think at the time there was a statistic going around that said the average person laughs like once or twice a day. So we've laughed more than that just on the radio together this morning, Fernando. I feel like it is, I feel like laughter is healing. Laughter brings people together. And we always say when people are laughing, they're open, and you look at them like their mouths are open, their arms are uncrossed. People are ready to receive new information, to listen, to have dialogue. And so that's what we wanted. We wanted a theater company that was a place of joy and a place of openness. And we called it 1812 because that's where we lived. We lived at 1812 Pine Street in this big apartment that was kind of an artist's flop house. You know, there were always, I don't know, we were actors, but there was always a painter and a dancer and a filmmaker and a sculptor and a musician, and this kind of rotating cast of characters. It was just a really big apartment that was really cheap, and it was a place where we made something out of nothing. And that's kind of how we saw our theater company too. It was like making something out of nothing. So
it's funny that you perform a lot at Plays and Players, which is just around the corner from
indeed. Well, we did pre-pandemic. We were at Plays and Players, and so we're just going to have to see. Who knows what will happen post-pandemic? But yes, I love that area of town. I love that theater. So
Scott Greer, your husband,
Yes.
has performed with you. So
Yes.
how are you, the two of you, dealing with, like, we're locked down basically? Huh?
We're fortunate in that we get along really well. I mean, I think we have a daughter too, and the three of us are a really good team. I will say that quarantine has stretched the limits of even those even great relationships. In the beginning, I think it was really novel, actually. You know, my husband is a performer and I'm, running the theater company. We don't see each other a whole lot. When pre-pandemic, we didn't, you know, we rarely have dinner together, we as a family, because we're going to shows and we're performing. We don't see each other in the evenings until, very late at night. So in the beginning of the pandemic, it was actually this really wonderful time of, my daughter's a senior in high school now. And the fact that we all sat down and had dinner together as a family every night was like unbelievable. And the fact that we got to spend as much time with her as we did. Senior year, nobody wants to spend time with their parents.
Right.
So it was this real blessing. And, it's, and he's working now. He got a job, and so he's out and about. So that's changed now. I'm still working, but working from home. He's working at De Bruno's, and, cutting prepared meat and, all of that sort of stuff.
That's the things we all do in
Yeah.
emergency. And
Yeah, totally.
And look, he's one of the great actors in this city.
Yeah. Yes.
You and Scott, you are like terrific, and you have entertained thousands of us over the years. So we can only hope that we go back to normal and we all meet live in the theater again.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you like a couple of things, because I'm always interested in what people in your profession always saying, like, how do you memorize so many things? And you do so many things. You write at the same time, you're in charge of a production, you're writing something, you act in something. How do you do that? That's like multitasking.
Yeah. I don't know. I think everybody is different. I mean, I could ask you similarly, like, how are you just like so relaxed behind the microphone and interview people all day? I feel like everybody, it's different skills, different muscles that we use and that we get used to. I will say this, I am a busybody. I am one of those people that I like to be always busy. And I started out as an actor, and I love performing. I don't think I could ever be just an actor. I think that would, I don't know. It's just not who I am. One of the best parts about running a company is that I can do things like I can work on writing a show, or I can kind of work on creating a piece in workshop, which is messy and which is always unfinished, and which is, about throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks, but then I can go and I can do the budget with my general manager. And that is like a puzzle. And there's a right answer to that, and you can figure it out and all the numbers add up. And so it's very satisfying to be able to have both sides working, to be able to engage with this messy, always unfinished process of creation, but always have these really hardcore numbers where, like I'm a crossword puzzle person. I like figuring out puzzles and how things work. And so for me, at least, doing all these things, each one feeds the other and kind of allows space for the other to thrive, and I kind of can't imagine just doing one. I would go crazy if I was just doing the budget, and I would go crazy if I was just making work. So.
Did you ever forget a line and you're on the stage and you freeze? I don't know what to say next.
All the time. And it depends on what, it has depended on the show. There are sometimes I do a lot of solo work, And that's the most terrifying when you forget a line on stage, because there's nobody else to save you.
That's right.
It is, you just are staring out at this blank space and trying to find your way back. When you're on stage with somebody else, that's a little bit easier because you've got a partner in crime. And I think every actor has been on stage with somebody else when you see that terrified look pass before their eyes and their eyes get wide and you realize they don't know where they are, or they don't know what they're saying. And but then it's about like investing in each other more and going like, okay, we're going to find our way back
Right.
together. And Scott and I and Dave, who's also in the show, and many actors who work with 1812, we've all been trained extensively in improvisation. And that certainly helps when you're on stage. And I have to say it's helped during COVID as well, because
Right.
it's like planning only gets you so far. You got to be ready to improvise and figure it out.
Yes.
So.
Well, sometimes you cannot improvise it. Like you're dead in the water. Like I worked as an interpreter, and I have briefly, I'll tell you the punchline. What happened was I was hired to be an interpreter in this $20 million case, and we went to Spain. And so the lawyers, there were 5 lawyers with me. So they were bragging that they brought the best interpreter in America to happen. Of course, that was their joke. And so they opened the case, and the lawyer for the defense has a question. He was a specialist, a doctor who was treating the patient, the guy who had the accident and lost his memory or whatever. So the first question from the lawyer is, doctor, what symptoms did you experience, and do you see your patient? He said, well, he suffers from tachylalia. And I froze immediately. I said, like, what? The best, excuse me, I need my dictionary. And that was the best interpreter in America. I couldn't even answer the first question. So that's a horrible experience. Have you
Yes.
have you had any experience like that where you freeze and don't know where to go with the next line?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And sometimes sometimes I just keep talking and find my way back. And other times I'm trying to remember, I've directed shows, and I've been in shows where people who have forgotten their lines have actually stopped and said, I'm sorry, I need to go back, or they've called for a line. I don't think I've ever stopped the show in that way. I've certainly probably said a whole bunch of nonsense that didn't make sense
Right.
to anybody else, just to try to cover up
Some non sequitur.
Yes, exactly. Something that I didn't, to not know where I am.
So what's your one of I'm sure you have many, but one of your favorite memories of doing theater?
Oh, wow. There are a lot. I think, because it's this time of year that we usually do This Is the Week. And Patsy, who's that South Philly character that you were talking about, which is one of the ones that I do a lot. Because I've been doing her for 15 years, our audience knows her. So when I come out, and she has a very iconic outfit, it's black stretch pants with the pink Eagles hoodie and the frosted hair and the pink Eagles cap. And so when she is announced and I come out on stage, there is usually a response. And there are some times when I think some of the best comic writing I've done as Patsy, for her. And there are times when I come out on stage and I say something, and so I did a show as Patsy right after Donald Trump was elected. And at least for many, many of us, it was a very dramatic and tragic experience. And it was before his inauguration. And I did a whole show and I invited all these women and we did a like pre-women's march, you know, but I started the show by saying, you know, well, here we are. Here we are. What happened this year? Oh, Castro died. Interesting. Yeah, that happened. That's just, you know, and I talked about all these little things and like, what else happened? Oh, yes. Hell froze over. That's right. Hell froze. And the like roar from the audience of not just laughter, but also release, because people were so, it's one of those laughs that is like, you know how you laugh when you need to laugh so badly, and that it's partially you're laughing because you'd cry otherwise. But those moments on stage of like the roar from the audience and that feeling of the fact that like we are in community together in this moment of laughing, even though there's deep fear and tragedy underneath it, it is potent. Really potent.
Well, in the same vein, and I know you don't want to dwell on the political tragedy that we're living through, but I felt horrible that night of the election, November 3rd. When I went to bed, I didn't go to bed. I was like 2 a.m. and still glued to the TV, hoping that this outcome was more clear. And so you know how long it took. And people don't even remember the time with Bush and Gore,
and Gore.
Where that also took 30 days or so, but it didn't seem like so tragic. It didn't seem like it was like, if this goes the other way, I don't know. Like people always say, I'm going to leave the country. I'd actually think about that.
Yeah. No, it is. Yes, and Fernando, yes, and to everything you just said. I remember very clearly, you know, I kept a journal at the time of Bush Gore, and I remember like waking up in the morning and writing like day 15, still no president, you know. But again, and believe me, I have my own feelings about George W. Bush, but boy, George W. Bush seems like a saint right now.
Oh, absolutely. Probably the most stable politician in the last 10 years.
I know. And it was one of those things, though, that I guess you didn't get the feeling that democracy would end if one of these people was elected over the other. And right now, I feel like there's great fear there with some of the things that have been discussed. And
like martial law.
Yeah.
I wrote a column for the newspaper saying that this is like a banana republic. I mean, and now people know what a banana republic feels like. You know, police state and possibility of martial law. Your vote doesn't count. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. No. But I prefer comedy.
Yes, indeed.
And you certainly brought a lot of that to us. But I think you wrote something in one, I think it was on the web, I found something that you wrote about a debate with an old friend about love and fear and which one is stronger.
Yeah.
And I think it was in relation to Tyndale plays. And it was something that I saw the progress of this, and I was looking forward to it. And then all of a sudden, COVID hit. So how do you feel about that?
Oh, that's a hard one. So Tyndale Place is a new musical that I wrote with a friend of mine, Monica Stevenson, and it's about women in Levittown in the 1950s. And it's something that we've been working on for years, 3 or 4 years, and it's something that's very close to my heart. And it was set to start rehearsals on March 21st, 2020. And of course, the shutdown happened a week before. So we pulled the plug, and the idea was like, oh, we'll just postpone it for 1 year. Well, we couldn't do it this season. And we're going to see. It's such a big undertaking that we want to make sure that when we do finally do it, and we will, I'm sure we're going to do it at some point. It's just when is the question mark. We just want to make sure that we can have people in the audience for it, you know, that's really the important part. But it really bums me out because we had an amazing cast. And many of these people in the cast are people that I wrote the roles for. And, you know, I just hope they stick around long enough for to do the show with us.
Yeah, I hope so, because it really was one of the most promising things that I've seen in theater. And, you know, it would be a shame. Anyway, señores oyentes de Usa la Media, estamos aquí en la mesa redonda de Round Table in a conversation with Jennifer Child from 1812 Production, talking about Tyndale Plays, which actually you can probably find notes on this, because I think I saw the possibility of listening to one of the songs and click in the right place. So look it up. Look up Jennifer Child and 1812 Productions, and you find Tyndale Plays. You know what? I'm looking forward to it. I know. I hope you can all get together and do it. You know, find it. It's one of those things that, and it was not in the same vein as all the other comedies that you have.
No,
it actually has very moving passages. That there's a great song about somebody who's working, and she sings. Help me here, Jenna.
I think you're probably talking about I Was Making Missiles.
I was making missiles, right?
Yeah.
Well, that is one of the most moving pieces I've ever heard in anything.
Thank you. No, it's very much about women of the time, and in the 1950s, I feel like was a big step back for women. The move to the suburbs put a lot of people back in their homes and not in the workforce, and so it's a piece that looks at like what that sort of what the cage of domestic life felt like for women. And so this one character, yes, who used to work in the factories making airplanes and making missiles, is, you know, it's about, you know, I was making missiles and now I'm making lunch, and that sort of thing. So
I cry for liberation.
Yeah, very much. And it's is such a sin about this COVID time is that it's very difficult to even work on this piece because we cannot sing in the same room as each other. Singing is one of the most dangerous things you can do. And so we thought, oh, you know, we can't produce the show, but maybe we can at least workshop it and work on it. And it is, and we haven't been able to, because we just, you know, a lot of what we would need to work on are harmonies and things like that. And you can't sing in the same room. So
that's right. And that's one of those things that, because you actually, when you do that, you sort of become almost like a family. You know, you are so used to each other's movements and voice and tone and all that. Yeah, I was watching a documentary about the Bee Gees, and they talk about one of the things that made them so particular was the fact that they were brothers, and actually the fantastic songs that they put together because of that. And so this is the case with you.
I didn't know you were a Bee Gees fan, Fernando.
Oh, well, you know, I'm dating myself. I'm actually a Beatles fan too. So,
me too.
And, you know, I'm actually a Sinatra fan.
All the classics.
Further back. And if we go further back, I'll start talking about tango. One of those things that I miss a lot. But we have Meredith Klein here, who's in charge of the tango school. She has the tango school, and she's a fantastic person. You should. I'm surprised you don't know each other.
I think our paths crossed. I think you introduced us, actually. I think you introduced us, and we had some email correspondence for a while. Yeah. Oops.
Know to do anything. I mean, she's organized events like the way you do with 1812. She's done that with tango, but you know, it's one of those things. Anyway, so one of the reasons you and I have been in contact is because I do the Spanish translations, and so will you tell us Jennifer Childs, 1812 Productions, doing an outreach to the Hispanic community.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been, I mean, I think it's less about, well, I guess, how long have you been doing these translations, Fernando? Is it
I
4
don't know,
years?
6 years,
3?
maybe more.
Something like that. I know. Time has no meaning anymore. But we are very fortunate to work with you. And one of the things that we talk about is accessibility. And accessibility means, how do we throw the doors open so that more people can enjoy our work and more people can have access to our work? And one of the things that we have an educational program in Philadelphia public schools, and a lot of the work that we were doing was in ESL classes, and using humor to bridge the gap between cultures. And we realized that, our shows, because they were all in English, were not accessible to some of the students that we were teaching. And so we started thinking about, and Tyler Melchior, our marketing director, was actually the person who had this idea of, we have this equipment that we would use in the theater, closed captioning equipment or open captioning equipment. That was a screen that sat on the side of the stage that showed all the lines, and it was for people who were hard of hearing. And he said, well, I wonder whether we could do something similar with Spanish, so that if we have the shows translated into Spanish, we can have the Spanish translation captioning running by the side of the screen outstage. And so we started doing that for, I think I Will Not Go Gently was the first show, one of my solo shows, the first one that you did.
Right.
And so we've been having the shows translated into Spanish and English, and having these captioned performances for each of them. And it is, we continue to try things. We tried a Spanish audio description one time. You did,
That's right.
where as opposed to it being as opposed to being seen on the side of the stage, you were sitting in the balcony live translating. That's an amazing thing. You talk about how do I do stuff? I don't know how you do things, like listening and translating immediately. But you would sit in the balcony, and audience members would have earphones in.
That's
and so
right.
they would hear the show, but they would also hear the translation.
Right.
And
I should be paid a lot more for that. People at the UN get paid a lot of money for doing this simultaneous translations.
I know.
Yeah,
what are we doing? We need to raise more money so that we can. You're the best. I hear you're the best interpreter in the United States.
That's right. That's right.
And as long as we don't say something like taquilalia. That's right.
I had no idea, except eventually I figured out it was like, what is the other thing that ends in lalia like that? That has to do with conversation. It just means fast speech. So it's like tachygraphy. That's what it is.
Oh,
tachygraphy, the same root.
Wow. Well, you're a better person than I am.
At the time, I didn't know. I learned a new word. And now, anyway, it's just one of those frustrations. Yeah. Indeed. Very embarrassing, because they're paying me a lot of money, and I stumble on the first question.
Well, you didn't know that taquilalia was coming at you, so.
No.
But and also, just to laud you even more, it's the work that you do for us is kind of extraordinary, because not only are you translating plays that already have a script, you are translating, because we do so much new work, you are translating new work that's constantly changing. And with This Is the Week That Is, because there are moments of improvisation, there are moments that where, for example, Dave, who was the man on the street or man in the lobby with you, will pull somebody up out of the audience and improvise with them. And so you have to be there translating on your feet as well.
Right.
And it makes for a really lively, really exciting moment in the theater. I always loved that when you were a part of that. But it's also, that's difficult.
Right. But it makes me look really clumsy, because usually it goes like this. It's like, what is your name? And he says, Bill. And I repeat, Bill.
Bill.
And he said, Where do you live, sir? Bryn Mawr. Bryn Mawr. So the translation is sort of useless at that point.
I know, but I think it's very funny though too. And I think that is something else that, and you and I have talked about this, which is kind of amazing, is how you translate comedy is very different.
You know, there's an old saying, comedy is what is lost in the translation.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's difficult.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to find equivalents for, especially like word play.
Yeah.
How do you translate that? Rhymes in this particular one, there's a lot of music and there are songs and all that.
Yeah.
The rhyme is almost impossible to find. So
Yeah.
you just do a straight translation, and
Yeah.
that's the best you can do with that. Anyway, but I'm always amazed at the talent on stage. I mean, Sean reading the news, it always cracks me up because he's so deadpan about stuff that he says. Unbelievable. You have very talented people. Dave Jadico, one of my favorite people.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. He does so many things. He plays instruments. He
Yes.
does, you know.
He eats fire, Fernando. He knows how to eat fire. You know, like, this is crazy. When he does, he juggles, he rides a unicycle, you know, he can balance. I think on the first show that we did together, it was a vaudeville show, and we did a thing where he was balancing on a ball, like a big ball. He was balancing on that, playing the accordion, and also balancing a trombone on his nose. And then at the end of the song, he would play a song on the accordion, and at the end he would jump off the ball, and the trombone would fall, and he would finish the song on the trombone. So yeah, Dave's that kind of person.
Unbelievable. But you do so many things too, because you sing, you dance. Instruments? What do you play?
I play the piano a little bit, and I play the flute a little bit.
Okay.
So.
And have you used them in your act on stage?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have not. I've played the piano just a little bit on stage. I always played. Yeah, I grew up playing like classical music, and I don't know. Mm-hmm. I really wish I could play by ear. You know, I'm so impressed with people who can play piano or play any instrument by ear, or who understand chord structure. I know how to read a piece of music, but I can't sit down at the piano and just improvise. But I have played piano in a couple of things, and I learned to play the drums for This Is the Week That Is. So I've played the drums a couple times. Dave Jadico taught me that because, of course, he plays the drums too. And I played flute a tiny bit in a solo piece I did called Why I'm Scared of Dance.
So you were training to be on the British stage. That's what you want to do, right?
Oh,
so,
I took myself so seriously, Fernando. I was going to be a very, very dramatic Shakespearean actress. And instead I wear fat suits and fall on my face. And
you're a clown. You're a clown.
I'm the clown.
A classic clown.
I'm a clown.
Like Lucille Ball and
yes.
kind of a clown. You're terrific.
Thank you.
Señores oyentes de Usa la Media, estamos en una conversación con Jennifer Child from 1812 Productions, and some of her memories from acting and what she does on the stage is just amazing. I mean, I know that Patsy is one of those things that you are extremely well known for, but you are a trained actress. So how did you train your voice?
Oh, there are so many different ways. I think it's, I went to school. So I went to school for theater, and at University of the Arts, each year you have different vocal training, and some of it is just about, articulation and getting rid of regionalisms and getting rid of your own accent. Some of it is learning other accents. But a lot of it is about breathing and about breath and physical work, and how that really, and it's about supporting your breath. I mean, people who sing do the same thing, because if you don't support your breath, you lose your voice. And so it was a lot about learning about breath work and how the way you hold your body affects your voice. So yeah, lots and lots of different kinds of training. And but
So what is your original accent from?
my original accent is probably Midwest. And when I get around my sisters and my mom and my dad, you'll hear it. It's a little flatter.
The flat A,
And flat A. And instead of saying, like in the South, the ing word is like, I'm going running. It's in the Midwest, it's I'm running.
Right.
So it's een down at, so some of that will come out like I'm running or I'm going. Yeah, so there's some of that comes out, certainly, depending on who I'm around and how many cocktails I've had.
Well, yeah, I always, I was self-conscious about my accent for a long time. I wanted to change it. But then I never got around to doing anything, so I'm stuck with what it is.
I think it's great.
I don't have your ear for languages.
Well, my husband's really good at it. He's got a really great ear for, and I think a lot of comedians do, for not just picking up other accents, but for mimicking other people, I often talk about how the comedian is a musician, and a lot of times it's the music of comedy it's about rhythm, it's about timing, but it's also about, you watch a lot of people, their ability to mimic other people or do impressions. Like that's the same thing as having a good ear for music. It's picking up tones and rhythms and cadences and that kind of thing.
Right. The funny thing is I can do accents in Spanish, but I cannot do in English. I have no idea how to do that.
That's amazing. So, and of course, I'm such an American. We don't think about the fact that, of course, there are a zillion different accents in Spanish, absolutely. And in a similar way. So give me an example.
Well, in Colombia, there are like three major accents. One is the capital accent. It's, and I am from Bogota, so that was my original accent. Yeah. And there's Medellin accent. Medellin is famous for the drug trade, but now it's also famous for being a beautiful city.
Yeah.
And then there is Cartagena on the coast, and that's also a different accent, very heavily influenced by the Caribbean kind of speech. Oye, chico, ¿cómo estás tú? Por la playa, ¿y tú para dónde vas? That's a Colombian accent. And then the Colombian accent is more formal. We're called cachacos, like, we're sort of stiff, always with a necktie. I grew up with a necktie from the age of 5, I'm sure.
Wow.
And so we were more formal. Entonces, yo estoy bien. ¿Cómo estás tú, Ala? ¿Qué hay de nuevo? ¿Qué me cuentas? It's sort of a very, I don't know, upper class, and not everybody is upper class there, I assure you. And then the Medellin accent, one of my favorites. When you want to tell a story, a joke, that's one of the best accents in Colombia, the Medellin. Ave María, pues, hombre, por la Virgen de Manizales, ¿qué me dices que ha pasado aquí? Y entonces, so that's the Medellin accent.
Wow.
So I can do that.
Yeah.
I can make fun of an Argentine. Oye, che, ¿qué estás diciendo? ¿Qué me decís? Es Argentina. And one of my favorite people is Darío Belot. He's from Argentina. I always make fun of him. So anyway, enough of that.
Well, it sounds to me, Fernando, like
yes.
My character Patsy needs to meet one of your like Cartagena characters. And,
that's right.
And maybe we can do a double act.
And Patsy will say, "What are you talking about?" That's funny. Yeah, I could be like one of the Phillies baseball players from Venezuela or Colombia, right?
Or one of my neighbors. One
of your neighbors, yeah. You just moved in, and the people moved out immediately. So, you mentioned, estamos aquí en La Mesa Redonda con Jennifer Childs. She's the producer, inventor, original actor of 1812 Productions. So
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you a question that about Patsy. How do you come by Patsy? How do you invent that?
Patsy.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, Patsy is the South Philly character. So I live in South Philadelphia, and so the story that I tell is about voting in South Philadelphia for the first time. And I went to the polls, and there's a woman behind the desk, and the woman in front of me goes up and she says, they said name, and she says, Iannelli. And they say, which one? Marie. Which one? The Marie Iannelli on Rittner Street. Which one? The Marie Iannelli on the 700 block of Rittner Street. Which one? And it just went on. And the fact that so first of all, the kind of the old Italian influence in, I always joke, everybody's named Marie in South Philadelphia. And so there was that, but then there's also, as I got to know a lot of my neighbors and a lot of the Patsies who lived in my neighborhood, I was sort of amazed. I think people make fun of the South Philly accent, and it is an accent to make fun of, certainly. But I would listen to these women, and they would tell these long stories, and they would speak in parable, and you'd ask them a question about politics, and instead of answering the question, they would tell you a long story about, oh, hon, when I was at the Acme the other day, this kid comes up to me and he says, do you know what's over there on aisle 29? And I said, no. And, and they go on and on and on, but they always brought it around to a point. And I was really enamored of this kind of homespun wisdom that these women had. And that to me is a really important point about this character, is that she is a piece of satire that is born of love as opposed to born of ridicule.
Right.
And that there's a big difference. So she's very funny, but she's also the smartest person in the room. So, I'm not talking about these women as they're dumb. They're very, very smart. And they just express themselves in different ways. But I couldn't do the accent for a very long time. My friend Jeline, who was a longtime comedic partner of mine, she and I did many shows together, and she was very tall, 6'2", and I was very short, 5 foot nothing. And so we were this Mutt and Jeff team. And she and I would do these characters together, Peg and Patsy, who were South Philly women sitting out on their front stoops talking. And she could do the accent perfectly, and I could not. She tried to teach me, and I spent a whole summer doing just vowel sounds, just to try to find that nasal South Philly thing. And so we were actually starting to work on a double act, she and I, of Peg and Patsy. And sadly, very sadly, before we could finish that, she passed away due to complications of breast cancer. And and it was one of those amazing things that she passed away and I suddenly could do the accent perfectly. And I often say that it was her little gift to me, is this thing that she left me. And because Patsy has become this huge sensation and in our little corner of the world. And so that was my gift from Jeline, was the South Philly accent. And the more
That's great. It's great. Yeah, you do. That's a terrific character. Well, Jen, we're believe it or not, we're running out of time here. Almost 1 hour. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So very quickly, because I don't want to cut you suddenly, but what is your next project? I know we're doing this is the week right now, so, and under these circumstances, I don't know what you have in mind.
Yeah.
Next.
We have a couple things coming up. Set Model Theater, which is a design challenge, but something I'm really excited about. In the spring, I'm going to be doing a project called The Way I Walk with 3 other Philadelphia performers, Melanie Cotton, Bijan No, and Tanakil Marquez. And the 4 of us are creating a piece about the way that we walk through the world and how where places that we overlap and places that we are very different. And it is the beginning of a 4-year investment in these artists who will then create pieces of their own for 1812. So.
Oh, wow, that's great. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I know Tanakil.
Yeah.
We were collaborating for a little while.
Yeah.
Well, señores oyentes de USA la Media, La Mesa Redonda, this has been a wonderful conversation, interview with Jennifer Child from 1812 Productions. Jennifer, thank you very much.
Thank you, Fernando.
And so, señores oyentes, muchas gracias por su sintonía. Se despide Fernando Méndez, Diego Gómez, controlando la máquina digital. Los esperamos hasta la próxima. Goodbye, Jennifer. Thank you.
Bye, Fernando. Thank you.
Bye. Okay.
Hey, you big turtle bum.
Hey, how was that, man?
That was nice. That was different. We saw more of your eyes.
Well, you know what the trick is? I'm looking at the small screen at the top of the page as opposed to the big screen.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
It worked.
Yeah, I have a small, I don't know if you do too, but I mean, I have a small screen at the top. And so if I look at that, and my eyes are open.
All right, I'm going to stop this recording now.
Okay,
right?
Thank you.
So you want to say bye-bye?
Thank you, man. That was wonderful. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
You bet.
Thank you. Bye-bye.